A writing shortcut I've been trying to avoid in my recent videos is the effective yet sometimes lazy practice of outright comparing games to other ones. And in doing so, I've been trying to do a better job of describing a game or its systems with my words. But boy, does Everhood really make that hard, and I don't think it's possible to put pen to paper on this one without addressing the quirky pixel art elephant in the room. Everhood is practically a playable reminder that Undertale has been around more than long enough to spawn spiritual successors. Good ones, apparently. The projectile dodging gameplay, cutesy fourth wall breaking cast, predominantly black backgrounds, and meta-narrative challenging the player's complacency in video game violence are practically a dead ringer for Toby Fox's 2015 RPG. And if you needed more proof, look no further than to the developer's confident acknowledgement that Undertale was their primary inspiration. It's about one evil flower and androgynous main character away from copyright infringement. But as important as I think it is to address that point, I also think it's equally important that I don't harp on it too much further. They say that comparison is the thief of joy, after all, and at least for me, and where I think I might be in the minority, is that I enjoyed Everhood despite its qualities that are similar to Undertale and not because of them. Everhood begins with a fourth wall breaking sequence that asks you if you want to play the game, and allows you to say no so you can be booted back out to the main menu. It's the sort of tone-setting intro that establishes the kind of journey that you're in for. One where calling it a fourth wall break feels like a perversion of the term because it implies there was even a wall to be broken. Once you're in, you control Red, a puppet creature whose arm gets stolen within moments of the game opening up, and getting it back is the impetus for your journey. A journey through a trippy world with other vaguely humanoid creatures who are all going through much more human problems than you are. Its isometric perspective is clearly RPG-like, despite Everhood containing no RPG systems, with its overworld serving as the ligaments connecting a series of brief conversations with NPCs, and the rhythmic battles that serve as the game's primary gameplay hook. The first true encounter in the game is with a mentor figure who attempts to ensure both you and your character are ready for the journey ahead. And I did in fact die twice here, both due to me taking the developers up on their suggestion to play the game on hard, and that I needed to give my brain time to adjust to the fact that, unlike my favorite Plastic Instrument games, the beats of the music correspond to them starting their travel, not ending it. The result is less a rhythm game and more a bullet hell on a grid, where the need for syncing inputs to the beat is replaced with the need for quick reflexes and dodging projectiles. Notes travel down 5 different lanes that need to be avoided. You can move horizontally, you can jump, and combining these two inputs leads to a jumping dodge roll that effectively acts as a diagonal move, allowing adjacent notes to travel under you during your airtime. Get to the end of the song without taking too many successive hits, and the battle is won. If you're asking yourself the question, is that all there is to it? The answer is yes, for the most part. I remember being underwhelmed seeing the screenshots and trailers for this game prior to purchasing it. And that's because I don't think anything other than playing Everhood really does it justice. This combat system is the definition of being greater than the sum of its parts. It's specifically the combination of music, presentation, and the inputs driving them that coalesce into a Ludo audiovisual treat. Everhood's battles are a playable laser light show, an interactive music video with you and your opponent as its subjects duking it out. I wish I knew more about audio to describe the technical reason of why it works so effectively, but I'll take a stab at it in layman's terms. The battles and their accompaniments fully understand the beauty in escalation. They begin with you dodging some simple notes while your opponent dialogues with you, and obviously it ramps from there. But what's not obvious is how far it will keep ramping. Where you think you'd normally hit a climax, you're still building, the music and the visuals swelling as the anticipation reaches an all-time high. And just when you think you've finally reached the limit of what the game is capable of, it'll shatter its own UI to prove you wrong, exploding into a triumphant peak that will have you desperately trying to keep up. The fights are bursting with creativity and mix up some core gameplay principles with insane frequencies. Your eyes will be raw from staring at its unfiltered phantasmagoria. Your palms will be sweating as they grip your controller. Your fingers will be desperately trying to direct your character around wave after wave of note. When the music finally stops and your foe is conquered, you'll feel like you've climbed a mountain. Yet when you look at the clock, you'll observe that only like 3 minutes has passed. That's Everhood's fights at their best, a state they are almost always in by virtue of how short the game is. There's anywhere from 2 to 3 dozen fights depending on how you count to meet the game's runtime, which, for me, was approximately 4 hours. This short length ensures that each fight is authored, curated, and important, meaning there's no filler fights here, and every battle in Everhood feels like it could be the best battle in Everhood. It's also likely this way to encourage the game being played multiple times to see the ramification of your choices and achieve multiple of its handful of endings. And in order to speak on this more, I'll need to get into details. Go to the next chapter in the description to avoid being spoiled. The various endings of Everhood splinter mostly off of a mid-game inflection point when you finally get your arm back and decide what to do with it. Being whole once more is echoed on the gameplay front by gaining offensive capabilities. The previously defensive style of combat that had you dodging notes as they traverse down the highway now has the twist of letting you grab notes and return them to sender. A well-timed button press as the note hits your character essentially parries the note. Parry two notes of a like color sequentially, and you can look for an opening to fling it back. It's a twist that goes a long way in adding to the rhythmic battles without overcomplicating the simplicity that made them such a joy in the first place, and this newfound power is a major paradigm shift in both the gameplay and the story. The second half of the journey that you're pushed towards, and what I would consider the game's normal ending, is a return trip back through the game to kill all the enemies you fought the first time around. This is where Everhood intentionally tries to subvert Undertale, which is weird because Undertale was itself a subversion of games, so I think we're kinda just back at square one. Because this kill everyone route is the path to the good ending. Because it's also revealed around this time that the trippy, non-Euclidean space you inhabit is sort of a limbo world where humans fled to in order to escape mortality, and in doing so lost their humanity over the course of centuries. By killing them, you are freeing them to be sent to the afterlife. You're a good guy, I promise, just don't ask questions, and listen to the scary Grim Reaper people. I get what they were going for, and the hit list you acquire that decrements every time you kill someone is a nice touch, but I don't think I felt the feels I was supposed to be feeling. With the exception of maybe like 2 to 3 out of 30 characters, most of them really felt like they didn't have a substantial enough part of this journey to really feel like anything more than the video NPCs that they literally are. What is supposed to be an empathetic euthanasia when striking your foes down, for the most part, feels just like detached brutality, at least it did for me. Except for Green Mage, I love that guy. All the while, you will be delivered absolute truths during gameplay, messages directly from the devs from which the game's main themes can be derived. Despite its intentionally ridiculous subtitle, Everhood is not as profound or complex as it presents itself to be. The core message is simple. The impermanence of life does not detract from its beauty, it adds to it. Carpe Diem, live life while you have it, and all that stuff. Enjoy the journey. A few notes on that journey, by the way. The developers sort of nudge you into creating a copied save file right before you grab your missing appendage, so that you can boot it up again after completion and try out some of the alternate paths, which is something that I spent an hour or so doing to get a few of the alternate endings that were within arm's reach. I did 4 of the 6 total endings that were achievable on my midway save, and I did originally have plans to start a new file and play the whole game again to get the super duper hardcore gamer ending, but I stopped that plan pretty early on for a simple reason. Coincidentally, one that I also had with that other game. I don't think that the non-battle gameplay on offer here is enough to sustain a second playthrough, regardless of how short it is. Neither the systems nor the world are dynamic enough to make that compelling. Movement doesn't feel great, the run button is clumsy, and the world is intentionally barren, so there's very little to do despite technically having the freedom to walk around it. The in-between battle segments are essentially just an RPG Maker game without the RPG. This Maker game is good enough one time through, but once I knew the broad strokes of where it was taking me, I'd have just preferred a menu to relive some of my favorite battles. Which, coincidentally, was added like a week before I started playing, and I can't fathom that the game once existed without it. Because despite only really playing the campaign for 5 hours, Steam is telling me I've logged over triple that amount of time, and it's because of this replay battle feature. You can easily boot up your favorite battles from a menu, which I did over and over again, enjoying their thrills once more while trying, and mostly failing, to beat some of its no-hit challenges, but certainly having a blast while doing it. There's even leaderboard support with monthly resets if you're into that sort of thing. Everhood also supports the creation and sharing of custom tracks, albeit sort of inelegantly. Seriously, one of the buttons in the UI just hyperlinks to a Google Doc. But it's here, and I'll take that over nothing. And despite me not having the technical skills to make my own tracks, I can certainly enjoy the creations of those with more talent than me. Do you want to hear an absolute truth? Everhood is a cool game, and I think it's worth playing at least once. The rhythm battles at its core know how to effectively build and pay off hype, and it manages to fill its duration with interesting encounters from start to finish. It wears its inspiration proudly on its sleeve, and it's up to you whether or not you rank this tale under its muse, but I think it comes out the other side being its own thing where it counts. For me, the actual campaign gameplay doesn't have enough replayability to justify multiple playthroughs over just playing its best moments again through a menu. I just don't think that the magic or intrigue that sustained the first run is something that can be easily replicated again. But maybe, not unlike life itself, there's beauty to be found in that fleetingness.